It's not clear when it happened, but it was at least a century before the Earth-Romulan War, probably longer. The Romulan people by this time were established, their empire formed, and their warp drives operable. The generational voyage of the Sundering, or the time of awakening to their Vulcan cousins, was long over. While exploring the Beta Quadrant, they discovered an incredible sight, an octonary star system, 8 stars in a stable formation that had been this way for at least 200,000 years. Unknown to the Romulan explorers, this system had been created by the technology of a species of long-deceased star shapers, the Tkon Empire, in their final days as their works turned against them. The artificial intelligence creations rising against the Tkon and shattering their empire with supernova. At the centre of this artificial marvel sat a single planet, Aya, barren except for a lone energy signature, the Admonition. This unassuming formation was a message, so the Romulan explorers gathered around it and listened, and it broke their minds. Assaulted by images of artificial intelligence, synthetic life, and the slaughter it unveiled, many of these explorers were driven mad in attempts to remove the images by any means. The shocked survivors, traumatized by this seeming warning from an ancient destroyed empire, formed together and created the Zhat Vash and proclaimed it their mission to ensure that this horror never unfold again. However, it was not a message left by the Tkon but by their murderers. Not a warning for organic life about the fate of their empire, but instructions for artificial life on how to contact these entities should the need to escape arise. It was never meant for the minds of the Romulans, and for this error the fate of galactic powers would forever be altered. Subterfuge would be the Zhat Vash's method, integrating themselves into every level of Romulan development and society, making it their goal to police and eliminate Romulan developments into synthetic life, preventing what they saw as an inevitability. They took in new members, and as they did so, they brought them to the Admonition to witness the same mind-shattering visions, birthing a new generation of zealots to their cause. But so effective were their actions that a new organisation was formed around them to expand their shroud through intelligence gathering and political scheming, the Tal Shiar. By the early 22nd century, the Tal Shiar had become a publicly known but clandestine face of internal security within the Romulan Star Empire, and an entity all of its own. While the Zhat Vash persisted inside the organisation, that is a tale for another day, and aside from the formation of the Tal Shiar, their part is done. The Tal Shiar is frighteningly powerful in the Star Empire. Officially, its role is to police the Empire from within, rooting out dissenters and sedition, while also keeping an eye out for external threats. Over time, it supplanted the Empire's own intelligence services, handling both the flow of external information and internal, through a myriad of sources and informants. Much of its operation is still obscure, but to call it the true power behind the throne would not be inaccurate. They're not beholden to the praetor of the Empire, and even at times act against the will of the government to safeguard what they see as the greater good of the worthy Romulan people. The head of the Tal Shiar is the chairman, who then oversees numerous vice chairmen, and it's the only known authority figures within the organisation. They do have to answer to the continuing committee, but one of the committee members is usually always the head of the Tal Shiar, and while the praetor technically ranks above them, the committee is responsible for forming law within the Empire, to which even the praetor is beholden. They have unrestricted access to any part of the Empire, and are permitted to root around in any document, interrogate any citizen, and watch anything they deem of interest. So, within the Empire, they can record and hold on to anything you say or do for later use. In this way, they manage to grow their network of informants and guarantee cooperation from all levels, especially as they are also in the business of manipulation. The Tal Shiar is also separate from the Imperial Star Navy, unlike the Federation, which maintains Starfleet's intelligence as a part of Starfleet. However, agents of the Tal Shiar often possess military rank within the fleet, but this rank means very little in the face of the reputation of the secretive organisation. As the primary intelligence gathering organisation, they also control a number of embedded agents outside of the Romulan territory and operate numerous listening posts, such as the suspected one on Nimbus 3. The authority of individual Tal Shiar agents, regardless of rank, often supersedes that of even an Imperial Navy commander, the captain of a starship. But should a clash of authority arise, it often involves personal pride, fear of repercussion, and occasionally moral judgment. The relationship between the Tal Shiar and the military is a tense one, fueled in part by the resentment and fear from the military's part of an organisation that holds such power and needing to adhere to their command structure. However, the Tal Shiar does supply all the intel for missions and definitely gets results. It's a tense relationship, and authority is not always clear. With their unregulated access within the Empire and the primary eyes looking beyond it, the Tal Shiar controls a vast sea of information passing down to the Imperial citizenry, even the government. However, they also manipulate and scheme. Unsurprising, considering the very foundation of their structure was a zealot sect formed to do just that, albeit with a more limited purview. The levels of manipulation vary, but they prefer subtlety even in this field. Deplorably, they are not above fabricating information to guide certain key individuals, or even framing them to gain leverage, or starting rumours to isolate or unify as needed. They are more likely to manipulate a dissident voice into exposing and destabilising themselves than outright eliminate them, but they are also not above assassination. Many a vocal opponent of the Star Empire has inexplicably found themselves destitute, vanished, or worse within the Empire. The thing is, this is not unique for Romulan power structures. I don't mean to suggest that the Tal Shiar is the true evil behind the Romulan Star Empire, when even their own Senate will conspire to murder and defame as suits individual members, and the Tal Shiar would have it no other way. After all, if, say, First Consul Telekia plotted to arrange an air skimmer accident for Praetor de Deridex, the Tal Shiar could now use this to leverage favours from Telekia or her accomplices. In this way, informants are aplenty, both within and external to the Empire, of numerous species. Both those who are unwilling and those who support the Romulans often supply information to the Tal Shiar handlers in secret, and nothing is quite as easy for the Romulans to infiltrate than Vulcan organisations. For a long time before it came to light that the Romulans and Vulcans shared ancestry, the Vulcan government's reticence to tell anyone of this allowed for extensive Romulan infiltration that persists even centuries later, with generational offspring still duty sworn and raised to serve the Empire in secret. Meanwhile, within the Empire itself, every facility, every ship, settlement, building even, likely has a Tal Shiar operative. An agent's identity may be known or secret, depending on the need. Leveraging the Tal Shiar's fearsome reputation is another tool in an operative's disposal, after all. Or a secretive position would allow an agent to funnel all findings of a patrolling vessel directly to the Tal Shiar. Ironically, the Tal Shiar's biggest weakness is this over-fondness of secrecy and compartmentalisation. Their fearsome reputation has led many to refuse to scrutinise the organisation closely, allowing for numerous infiltrations and imposters to make their way in. For example, Chairman Koval, the very head of the Tal Shiar, was in fact in support of Section 31, a Federation Alliance supporter, and took part in a plan to amass more sway on the committee after being excluded from it. That such a person could successfully manage to gain such a position while hiding his true agenda speaks to both the potency of Section 31 and the glaring issues with the Tal Shiar. The Tal Shiar originally did not have the capacity to construct their own vessels, reliant on the military to escort their operatives thanks to one of the few regulations placed on them. However, this was eventually superseded when it was revealed in 2371 that they had indeed been stockpiling their own armada, if the need arose. In that year, however, they were truly humiliated in the face of the Dominion, who outplayed them at their own game, and the Tal Shiar, alongside the Obsidian Order of the Cardassians, was dealt a stinging defeat. But they persisted, and 3 years later they were rebuilding their armada, even attempting to secure Starfleet's technology by force. Nothing is more telling of the priorities of the Tal Shiar than the fact that they outlived the Romulan Star Empire. In 2380, they'd already become aware of the instability of the Romulan Star and informed select members of the Senate. On top of this, they took up the role of policing the flow of information around the subject, even silencing scientists about it and possibly even being aware of the root cause. In 2386, they'd successfully relocated and hidden a key scientist involved in some project around the star who felt ultimately responsible for the supernova, now using him as an informant. They prioritised their own control and power plays with the Star Empire's governing bodies over the safety and security that they preach. The Tal Shiar's secrecy was enacted with the government's blessing to do some large-scale house cleaning of the Empire, leaving behind dissenting voices while preserving large swathes of the military and their own power structure. What's more, it was voices within the Tal Shiar, the Zhat Vash, that orchestrated the destruction of the Federation's evacuation fleet in 2385, all in the hopes of curtailing UFP research into artificial life, an act that ultimately cost even more Romulan lives with the complete loss of the Federation's aid. In the wake of the supernova, the Tal Shiar persists, untethered from the people it once policed and claims to watch over. Now it pursues its own interests, allied in part with the Free State, but who knows where its ambitions will lead. Originally, they were separate from the Romulan Compliance Division and other security forces, but with such a radical fate befalling the Empire, their reach seems to have greatly expanded. Thank you for watching this video on the Tal Shiar. For as fearsome as they are, there are even worse organisations within Star Trek, such as the Obsidian Order. Romulan lore is always so deliciously Machiavellian, and this is perhaps one of the most striking examples of it. I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time for another lore video. Until then, thanks again, and goodbye.